Hello, I am Adam Barralet, and welcome to our inaugural conversation where we are going to dive into the gift of the different oils of a very special country. It's my home country, Australia. And joining me is probably the best person to speak about Australian native oils. Debbie Adderby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Adam. I'm very excited again. I love to be able to talk about my passion, and of course, that is native Australian essential oils. So, yeah, really good. Thank you.
And of course, throughout 2025, we're going to be releasing a different essential oil conversation each month so people can learn about all the different gifts that are here in Australia as well. But for the few people that haven't had the opportunity of meeting you or finding out about you, Debbie, could you tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate about native Australian oils and all the work you've done with them?
Yeah, sure. Do you know, it's funny, Adam. People have asked the question about how long ago did I start using native Australian essential oils? Well, I could go back to the 70s easily because, eucalyptus, like your Eucalyptus globius, was a very, very popular essential oil in those days, and so was your Kangaroo Island eucalyptus. Now, these type of things I would work with a lot during massage within my clinics and things like that. We had the myrtles and things like that, but we never had what we've got today. Today we've got an abundance of Australian oils being produced. Yes, we had tea tree, and of course they would be obviously integrated. Now, I've been in practice since the 70s in clinical work and used obviously common essential oils as well, because at that stage we didn't have it all. We did have one of my favorite common oils, which is clove oil, but you could purchase that from a chemist, and as you could your eucalyptus. So yeah, I don't know. I've always wanted to do that. It was really important to me because Australia is my home as well. And yeah, I suppose years and years of just using them has just made me more excited about putting him into clinics. So every new one came along, I would get there and work with it and, trial it. And yeah, that's how that all sort of begun for me.
And I think both you and I are really passionate. We think it's great for Australians to know that there are options within the Australian landscape which produce essential oils. And I think the more we can work with local essential oils, that's great for sustainability. It's great for connection to land. It's great for spirituality. There's a whole bunch of levels as well. But also for our international market, most people, you listed the main two that people would say Australia produces eucalyptus and tea tree. And after that, people probably start umming and ahhing. However, we are going to start our conversation today with an oil that people probably do know well, probably come in at a close third of a famous Australian essential oil. We're going to talk a little bit about lemon myrtle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know you were showing me just before we hit the record button that you've got a little bit of lemon myrtle to show us. So tell us a little bit about where do we find it in Australia? What does it look like? Where does the oil come from and so on?
Yeah. Well, I wish you could be with me, because if we were with me, I could pop that little light up and you actually could see the actual essential oil sacks in there, because Australian essential oil production through this type of leaf and things like that are very, very, very high. You get a very good abundance of distilling the oil itself. So this plant, its real name is called the Bacchausia citriodora, and that kind of came through from a botanist from England when they first landed in Australia, and his name was actually, get it, James Backhausie. So it's kind of like the Bacchausia citriodora. That's how they really got the name, and that's way back. Like we're talking right back at around 1850s. So that's a long time ago where that all happened. But this particular, and sadly, as you can see, the flowers have already fallen. We've had our most abundance right at the beginning of November. The flowers are absolutely dynamite, and it isn't the flowers, but it's the leaf that they use to distill. So yeah, and it grows amazingly here because we've got that hot, humid, wet climate. So yeah, and they've been working with this sort of stuff for years now. So yeah, that's basically what it is, and that's exactly where it comes from. These leaves. This is where it's all harvested and distilled with.
So when you're saying here, Queensland is where you would find the plant
Oh,
growing natively?
sorry. Oh, Forgive me, forgive me. Yes, of course, Queensland, the eastern side of Australia. Yeah, we're a very long way away from each other. And yes, as we discussed a little bit this morning when we were chatting, it's such a humid area. I'm actually right on the Gold Coast, so I'm on the borderline. I'm like, I could drive from my house. It would take me no more than 15 minutes to get to the northern rivers. Now, in the northern rivers, myrtle it just grows in abundance. It loves it there. It goes right down into Coffs Harbour, which is, right into New South Wales, but also it grows amazingly all the way up to the tablelands as well. So, yeah.
Wow. Now, it is an amazing essential oil, but I've heard before that you've got to be careful when you're buying your lemon myrtle.
Yeah.
In Australia and elsewhere around the world, there is very few regulations on the labelling of essential oil. And because of it's got a bit of an aroma and a bit of chemistry to things like lemongrass, which is obviously a lot cheaper. And I believe sometimes it can be adulterated. So you've got to be a bit careful with purchasing your lemon myrtle. Is that right?
Yeah, look, Adam, and not just that. I mean, we'll speak about this now with what we're doing, and I will try to educate everybody quite clearly. It is about who you purchase your oils from, because if you've got good companies that are buying their oil, then they have to keep their name up there. And the one thing they're not going to do is buy a shady type of adulteration and sell it off. That's not going to happen. So know your company well. That is very important. Also, I'd like to just throw in, sometimes people go, oh, I've found something really good at the markets as well. Now, I'm not saying that all things that are sold in marketplaces or things like that, if it's not branded properly with a brand name, then be careful, because sometimes people's distilling can be done differently. Now, where I say that is and I have had this with a eucalyptus that I bought one day just to have a good sniff of it, and it was actually distilled with a petrochemical. So sitting behind that, you could actually smell petrol.
Wow.
So I just quote this 100,000 times to anybody, any of my students, anyone that wants the truth about it: buy from a reputable company, and you're.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because for that adulteration of a lemon myrtle, it's going to be hard unless you've got a really experienced nose of being able to pick the difference. Would you agree?
Extremely hard, because lemongrass is very high in citral, and this is exactly what this plant is high in. It is high in citral. We'll talk a little bit about that. And it's easy to adulterate things when you got the right chemistry behind it, and
Mm.
they know it. People that
Yeah.
adulterate know what they're doing, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm really interested to have a conversation with you today about how we can use it and how it is used today. But I'd like to go back in history a little bit. The
So
Indigenous people that have been on this land for eons and centuries, have they lent into this beautiful aromatic lemon leaf in any way in the past?
yeah. Well, let me give you some, because I love, obviously, my book is full of history, and, I really love to cross that pathway. I suppose one of the biggest things that we will start learning about together while I'm with you is that, sadly, our First Nations people, a lot of information of their healing or their history was never documented. And so with that, you can only hope that an elder's been able to encapsulate their elders and their elders before them to be able to say, well, this is what it works and why it works. So I'll give you a little bit of information, but I'll also give you a little bit of information, if of course, if you wish, about where it really grew for our white settlers as well. Because, to me, we're all even in this country. And that's why I think I like to share both sides of every story within that,
Mm.
with that realm of the history. So let me go. A little bit of the history that I had known is that the First Nations people would use it quite a lot, because it's such a high aroma. Like, I mean, you just have to crush one leaf and you've got that straight away. Now, this is wonderful because they used it for like insect repellent. So they would crush the leaves and they would actually rub the leaves on their skin, or they would actually use them to ward off the insects. So they would, I don't know, I won't do that because I'll have flowers flicking all over the place, but they would really do this, and that breaking would actually release that tiny molecular structure, which then those essential oils would actually lay on the skin. Now that's interesting, but that's how they would work with it. They also would use this for flavoring as well, as we did too, and I'll go there, but they would actually take the leaves and they would put them, like they would get barramundi or something, and they would get the paper bark, they'd get that bark off the trees, and they put the leaves of the lemon in with the fish, and then they wrap it up in the bark, and then they put it underneath the hot, like hot, I don't want to say hot coals, but it kind of like hot rocks. I know that sounds weird, but then they would cook that fish, and then that would give the most amazing flavour. And we've done that too. And a lot of restaurants I know, a few of them here on the Gold Coast actually have taken that way of also cooking it, the barramundi. So that's kind of there. They also used the tea a lot. So hence here we have copper tea that I prepared earlier, of course. This is from all of the leaves itself. This tea was used with them for tummy ailments and things like that. So if they had problems with stomach ache and dysentery and stuff like that. So they worked really well with that. But back, if we were to go, say, looking at our first white settlers, it would be, even though they named it in around 1850s, around 1888, around that time, sort of like 20 years, a bit more later, they actually the botanists took this plant and they actually wanted to take it in and dissect it to see what they could really find from this. And they were actually amazed because this pharmaceutical company couldn't believe that they were looking at something like 90 to 95% of citral actually produced in this thing. And they knew then that this would be something amazing. And we can talk a little bit about that when we get into some other things a bit later. But, really, this was happening way back then. This has been a part of Australians' history for a very, very long time, And it was actually around about the early 1900s. What they actually did is they were producing it. So they were actually making essential oils, but the essential oils from this was being exported into Europe and other places like the United States. And what they did is the Australians distilled it, and a company in Australia, because it was getting close to getting into that kind of war times and stuff like that, and they were losing flavors and things like that, so they used to actually use it to create like the lemon flavor, this company, all those years back. So it actually really has been around for a long time,
But maybe, maybe not in our awareness as much, but has been used for sure. Now, I'm really interested in, you've been mentioning citral, which is one of the chemical constituents that makes up most of the essential oil. Talk to me a little bit about citral. Where else do we find it in other essential oils? And I believe that lemon myrtle's pretty impressive by that fact that it's 90+% citral.
Yeah, well, that comes on, that really, if you were going to look for that citral, many essential oils will have citral in it. I'll have to say that. But it's the percentage that rolls in that creates the outcome of what we get with this. So this particular citral is something we need to also be a little bit careful with as well. So there's got to be some safety behind it. So citral is what we call an aldehyde. Now, aldehydes are very known to be irritants, but within saying that too, Adam, it also has the ability to have calming effects as well. So it's how you use it correctly is what you're going to get your best results with. Because of that citral, we need to be aware of that.
So let's dive in a little bit. First of all, for you, And for professional aromatherapists,
Yeah,
when would an aromatherapist reach for lemon myrtle in their collection?
right. Look, as a clinical aromatherapist, I suppose we could look at aromatherapy in many levels as well. Some people are professional aromatherapists and they work maybe more on that spiritual level, or they work more on a massage level, or they'll work more on, whatever. For me, it's like clinical stuff. It's like I work with citrals, these things high in citral, when I'm looking at formulating product for a specific fungal infection or something like, I don't know, we could talk about a whole bunch of different types of fungal and antibacterial problems, but that's where I would reach for it. And I would formulate creams or gels and I would use that.
So normally skin issues, are you saying there it would be good for?
Yeah, generally
Yeah.
for skin issues. But let me say this, Adam, I don't put it past, because I suppose I'm very lucky. If I have people coming into my clinic and they've got uh, certain problems, I suggest that they may look at drinking the tea regularly. Now, if we could jump a little bit into the plant a bit here, that's,
Mhm.
we know the citral, and we do know that it's 95% in the actual plant itself when it's distilled. But this particular plant, by drinking these teas, which we just talked about, I'll have a little sip first while I'm here. Beautiful. It actually has shown that it has really strong qualities. Like it's not just for its essential oil here. The Charles University have done lots of scientific research on the leaf itself. And yes, they see the antibacterial and the antimicrobial and antifungal type effects, but they can also say to themselves, it's rich in calcium, it's something that has antioxidants and lutein, which is like, say, like having carotenoids, which help people with eye conditions like macular degenerative problems. So, it's got things like A's and E's and zinc and magnesium in the leaves. So it actually becomes a tonic, if I
Mm,
could say that in myself. I'd say this is like a tonic. So
yeah.
it's not only just what we would do to gather the leaf, it would be something that I would say, I sell to my clientele, the dry leaf. So, I'll dehydrate off leaf or whatever, or, I can purchase it from companies that do a brilliant job of that. And, I on sell that to my clients and they use it as a medicine.
Yeah. But I guess one thing we should point out here is what we're getting when we're drinking lemon myrtle tea is going to be different from what we have in the lemon myrtle essential oil, because from the steam distillation, steam doesn't drag out absolutely everything, including a lot of the vitamins and things that you listed then in the essential oil. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It will not bring out those other active principles, because, we're talking about a leaf which, compounds it. And when you're drinking it, the essential oil, that you will ingest some of that essential oil, there is no doubt about it. But in herbal medicine, one of the biggest things I did, when I was 18, was herbal medicine first before I really did anything else. And, we're taught straight away that, yes, herbal medicine, if it is incorrectly dosed as well, can be just as dangerous as anything else. But plants are very amazing because they actually do have their own buffers in it. So they kind of give that protection as well. So when you're actually using an infused tea, you may be drinking some of the essential oil, but you're not going to have that irritant issue, where put if you did put the actual essential oil, say for safe sakes, into a warm water, I'm telling you right now, you would have the worst irritation to the mucous membranes as you are swallowing it, because of that activity of that 90 to 95% aldehyde. So, safety is a very important part of it. And it's the same as dosage when I'm making up a product. Like, I have to look at the area, because, for instance, this little bottle, it it is scientifically proven that it is actually better than tea tree itself alone.
Wow.
it is, it's an amazing essential oil. And if it's not just used to do, helping at times when we've got the flu spreading around and lots of viral little infections, it's just a great all rounder. I mean, this is something that can be used pretty well with everything, and as long as people use it properly, there should be no problem.
I guess one thing to be mindful of is when we've got that small bottle of 5, 10, 15 mils of essential oil, that's a whole lot of leaf in there, isn't there? That's not just a couple of leaves like we're having in a tea. It's a power punch of it. So that's why a little bit goes a long, long way, and too much can be an irritant, as you've said.
Correct. And I think that, Adam, I was just so thrilled when you invited me in to do this together, because I want the world to know the importance behind that way of using. I want people to know what is right and what is wrong. And I will be totally honest to you about everything. Like cooking, I'm not saying that you can't put a couple of drops in a cooking situation.
Mm.
I'm not saying you can't do that, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you not to put it in your mouth and swallow it because of the mucous membranes. Because once you start cooking it actually does break down, and so it will give you those hints and highlights of that beautiful lemon that you need maybe when you're producing something. But it's like 1 or 2 drops. Like it's not like, oh, well, let's pick it up and put a teaspoonful of that in our cooking, because that's not what we're talking about.
No, very much so. So let's have a bit of a conversation, because aromatherapy has changed even in the decades that I've been around. Once upon a time, essential oils were the domain of a clinical aromatherapist like yourself, and that was about it. And maybe you'd get probably some rather crappy things that at home you might put in the good old tea light candle burner. But over the last few decades, essential oils have been something that people are buying, you know, everywhere online, in shops, at markets, all that kind of thing, but they're bringing them into their home. So many of the people that are watching these videos wouldn't become a qualified aromatherapist, but they've got essential oils in their home. Where can they use their lemon myrtle? How can they use it proactively and maybe reactively as well?
Okay, and that's a really, really strong but really good question, Adam, because we as clinical aromatherapists, we have to widen our thoughts as well. And so the biggest thing to me is that if they don't want to go and learn to be an aromatherapist, things like what we're doing right now is going to educate them clearly. And that's what's really important. So, they can be working with these. Like, for instance, they could be using, because here, let me jump in, as I always do. There's another thought that comes to my mind. They're doing research on the actual backhouses to Triadora now, because they also see that they're going to help with improvement of that degenerative problems with the cognitive area of the brain. So hence me say I would like to maybe run sometime very soon in the new year how to truly use one of these, which is an inhaler. I would like to teach people how to put, the correct essential oil. And one of them that would work beautifully is, working with your particular, lemon myrtle. But, putting the right dosage and mixing it with the right thing and using it correctly is very powerful, because this is the highway to the brain. And this is really what they're doing research on now. And I think that this is something that people need to know properly, because like what you said to me just a few words back, was that too much can be too dangerous.
Mm.
So if they think they're going to put lots of this on and it's going to help with, they've got issues, then sometimes it could react differently. And it's like, is that going to affect the medication I'm on as well? And I think that that's stuff that you and I can truly share.
Yeah, very much so. So an inhaler there'd be some positive uses for using that as well.
Yep.
Is it, we've talked about internally, it's not, maybe we might cook with it, but it's not one we're going to be throwing down our throat. So
Yep.
that leaves us, the aromatic use and the topical use. So at home, would there be benefits to diffusing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, for myself, and you can't see, probably I can't see what's behind me at the moment, but I've got I'm burning the actual lemon myrtle at the moment. One, it's a wonderful thing for deodorizing. Of course it is. It's just fresh and clean. You can use um, this particular essential oil. It makes an amazing thing for cleaning down sinks and stuff. And maybe there's some time we can develop one of those and show people exactly how to make the right thing cleaning problem. It will be working around the bathroom areas and things like that. So really conquering and knocking out those germs. So yeah, absolutely, put it out there, put it in your diffusers. But remember something too, when you're diffusing something, so we're going to go there quickly. When you're diffusing, you know don't do it in a tiny little baby room. Like, don't put it around babies and things like that, and don't put it in where you're closed in either, because remember, you're pumping out pure essential oil. So those little tiny molecules, if you're sitting here and you're doing your work on a computer and you got it pumping in your face, it's going to irritate the mucous membranes. So please be aware of that as well. So distance, using it right, getting the right dosage, and we can set things here to help. We'll go through each one of these and we'll get some really neat little Australian remedies, and we'll talk about those as well. I did want to share one thing with you too. Now, these in chemists today, this is another way you can use this topically. In chemists today, you can actually buy mozzie repellents. You've seen those before, Adam, where you see the kids wearing them on their skin and things like that to stop them. Well, I wouldn't put it on my skin here, but these are little pads which you just take off and you put them on their clothes, and you can actually pop things like that citral, so that it deters the mosquito and things like that as well, especially where we are. We have a lot of mosquito here.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking as you're talking, and I'm trying to get my checklist of ways I can use it in my head. You talked about citrol being very antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial, all that. So it's going to be great, especially in those all of the year, diffusing it to cleanse the air. But in your
Yep.
cleaning products, and especially around winter, you know,
Yep.
there are some other essential oils that are like that. I think clove is it's not the nicest smell in the world. I think lemon myrtle would beat clove every day for aroma. So it's going to actually make your house smell
Okay,
nice.
I'm going to interrupt now. I like I absolutely love it. And clove and lemon myrtle actually like each other very much.
So they're a good pairing, are they? Okay, fair enough. Well, for those that want a lemon scent, you've got a great cleaner around the house, throughout the year, more and that. But also, mosquitoes are something that can be a problem, especially in the warmer months. In Australia, they're an issue. Around the world, they're an issue. We're getting more worried about how I even heard in the news how they're trying to eliminate certain species of mosquitoes with genetic engineering and all this thing because of the diseases they can carry. So the more we can repel them naturally, again, because the alternatives that we can buy in a supermarket for cleaning products increase our toxic load. Some of the things that we use as insect repellents, the reason they kill insects is they kill everything and probably are doing some damage to us. When we're bringing in the lemon myrtle, we're bringing in a more natural and supportive thing for both the home that will then have a positive impact on our body as well, won't it?
Absolutely. As long as you use it correctly, as we say, and the right dosage, you should not have problems with these things. There shouldn't be any issues. It's where we get most of the media problems from is generally people who are really not using it as it should be. And then someone complains, and then it comes on and everyone goes, oh, don't ever use an essential oil, it's the wrong thing. And that's generally because they just don't have that understanding behind them. So yeah, it's very important. And yes, this is an amazing thing. It's even great when you're washing your floors, because you can pop that in to a floor wash, and you can really have a couple of drops in there, disperse it in there, and clean around your floors. And that's a fabulous thing to do. I could go on forever here, but lemon myrtle really is absolutely amazing. If you want to do things in your refrigerator, if you want your fridge to smell beautiful, all I do is I've got like a little penguin, right? And this little penguin, I fill him up with bicarb soda. And then all I do is I put a few drops of this lemon myrtle in and pop him in the fridge. And that smell in your fridge is just amazing when you go in there and you open up the fridge. So many things you can do. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm just thinking about my general knowledge of global essential oils, and we have oils that we know like fennel and ginger are good for the digestive system, and maybe eucalyptus and frankincense are good for the respiratory system. Are there certain systems of the body that lemon myrtle is kind of zones in on them?
Well, I suppose I wouldn't sort of sit straight down and say, well, that's what it's going to do for you. As I said, if you're looking at using it as an all-round tea, then we're going to obviously be looking at strengthening that area of the eye. So I think that's if you're going to really look at that, it's also something that I would say works beautifully for the abdomen area, and really great for that stomach, and it just settles any tummy issues that you may have. And often, and I will say this straight up, if I'm making the tea with this, I will either use the straight leaf, obviously, because I grow it in my backyard. I can do so, right? And I may just break up the leaf and pop them in, and then use it like a little tea bag if I want one cup of tea, or I make that. But this is great for your eyes. Remember, we're going back here looking at the lignin here and looking at how that can also help with antioxidants. And, that's going to be an all-round help within the body itself. So using it and burning it is also going to be something that's going to work well in that area that we talk about, for the actual, crossing that blood-brain barrier, and really looking at that degenerative type problems, keeping people either in a more calmer but a more alert way. So it's an all-round yes for me with this.
Yeah. Now, I may be trying to force you into boxes you don't want to go into, but would I be right in saying that maybe lemon myrtle would be great for cognitive function, immunity, and skin health?
I say you could say that's exactly what it would do. As long as you use it correctly, you've got all of it in one little bottle.
Yeah, amazing. Now, you've obviously used lemon myrtle over the years. Are there any stories that kind of stand out where you're like, I had a client or there's someone in my life who had an issue and lemon myrtle saved the day?
Mm. Look, I suppose with me, I could say that in a million ways. I find that when I'm running workshops and things, the one thing I always do, and I find I always get such wonderful responses from people. I will have these on the cooker and I've got them going, and people are just drinking lemon myrtle all day long. And, I burn it without overpowering them, but it keeps that alertness in. It keeps them really, really, really aware. There is a couple of issues that I have had over the years within the clinical practice when we're talking about skin. McGloskin was one of those where the young children are getting these little tiny. You'll have to go through it if you would really wanted to learn it, I'm getting some good results with sort of knocking the actual infection comes up with these little tiny blister pussy little things. It's a big word, but anyway, we won't go right into that. But I also have had it when I've had fungal problems with people coming in with ingrown toenails and stuff like that. So making up like gels, and so you've got that carrier, so it's not creating a super duper irritation or anything on the skin, but it's also strong enough to get in there and fight those fungal and bacterial problems. So there's some of the good things.
Yeah, when it comes to the dilution, there are different what's the word I'm looking for? Ratios or rates that are often promoted, like, lavender, the maximum dilution should be this or that type of thing. If people are using lemon myrtle at home, one drop of lemon myrtle to how much of a carrier typically? Do you know?
That in itself, Adam, is about where and what and how you're using it. You see, it's just not
Yeah.
one drop. It's all about, are you going to use that in your diffuser? Well, if you're going to use it in your diffuser, then on the average it will be on the volume of water that you may have in
Mm.
your diffuser. So, a larger one, you may take easily a good, 5 to 6 drops in that diffuser. You might be using it in a small oil burner, and you might do about 2 or 3 drops in the oil burner. If I'm using it with these inhalers, well, this will depend, because sometimes, because it's high in citral, we have to still keep the lower dose coming through. You may want to add it to cream. So we might even go through time together where I show people how to pop it into creams properly, and then
Mm.
it's an already made cream so that they can use it. And there again, we have to be concerned because am I using it on someone who's young, or am I using it on someone who's old and their skin is very fragile, and the tissue is the integrity is very light. We don't want a citral to go and irritate it and create problems. So there is a few things there that need to be understood. And, over the time, we can learn these things together.
Amazing, amazing. Now, you referred to it a little bit before about how lemon myrtle can help with cognition, and we are learning more and more that our physical well-being is so interdependent in our emotional well-being, our mental health, and I would even argue our spirituality as well. So those are all interlinked. Where do you find lemon myrtle really steps in with helping with emotions? What type of emotions? You know, and that type of thing. Does it have a place there as well?
Absolutely. So then we go back to that area when we were talking about how I said it can be a big irritant, but it can be a relaxant. So the one good thing about the lemon myrtle, it has a tendency to really work well for people that are suffering a little bit with anxiety and stuff like that, and a little bit of that sort of depression. It's got that uplifting, but it's always funny because people say to me, "How can one thing like that in a little bottle have all those different things and it helps you?" Well, it can. It just can. So it has that sort of clearing and enlightening aroma, yet it has the ability to plateau and give you that sort of calmative effect as well.
I love that. Now, in your book, which is an absolutely amazing resource for both aromatherapists and the public, anyone who's passionate about learning more about essential oils, we will have the details for that in the links below. But you've got some real great recipes for each of the essential oils in there as well. I was wondering if I can hit you up for a lemon myrtle recipe today.
Okay, let me think of something really nice. I think we'll talk about Christmas coming. Is that
Why
okay?
not?
I think that, the one of the things about Australia is that we have got a lot of native oils, which are high in cineols, which are oxides, and we do have lots of them with citrals in it, which have got that lemon flavour coming through. So I'm talking about my side of Australia here, but often when we mow the lawn and we get into these hot days as we are after lots of rain, you can actually smell that aroma. And lemon myrtle is at a lovely peak time at the moment because its flowers are out for Christmas, and they're just on the fall now. And I think if we use that with a nice Christmas blend. Now look, I'm not going to say this, but I'm just going to throw a bit of clove in there as well, actually, for the Christmas blend. And I'm also going to throw another one in, which I would say anise myrtle and
Mm.
eucalyptus. And the eucalyptus I would choose for this would be the radiata. And all eucalyptuses, we might even grab some time one day about eucalyptus, because each one of them have a little bit of difference behind them.
So true. And that's what, when we think of eucalyptus, people just go eucalyptus is eucalyptus, but there are over 700 species of eucalyptus in Australia, all of them produce an essential oil. Not all of those 700 species are, the oil is cultivated commercially, but they are. You're exactly right. I noticed just in their aromas, they're different, but which would surely mean their chemistry and their uses would vary a little bit as well. So, yeah, radiata would be the one to go with.
Maybe later on we could talk about, I could maybe show you how we can see the difference between, say, your dives and your radiatas and your globuses and things like that, because they all impact as well when you're looking at caring for yourself as well and using the essential oils. They all impact on that as well. So my choice of thought, I would probably be looking at, yes, some of this beautiful backhousey. I would use very minimal, not overdo it. If you're going to do it into, say, let me say, a diffuser, or excuse me for leaning over here, but maybe I know you shouldn't, but I still love it on my dinner table to have the oil burners going, because that's me. I'm in control of the flame, so I know what I'm doing. Something like that. You don't need a disperser in it. I would suggest you pop your candle, maybe a 9-hour candle because you're in the house, and maybe 2 drops of the actual lemon myrtle. Then after the 2 drops of lemon myrtle, I would probably be looking at putting in 1 clove, maybe 2 cloves, and then I would put in probably around about four of the actual eucalyptus itself. It gives it that kind of bushy smell about it as well, but it's lovely and clean for Christmas.
I love that. So there we go. There's Debbie Adderby's Christmas blend of lemon myrtle, clove, anise myrtle, and eucalyptus radiata.
1 drop of anise though, because honestly it's very, very powerful, and some people actually don't even like it. I That's not my Christmas blend, my true one, but anyway, that gives you a little bit of something there.
That's right, for sure. Well, Debbie, we've travelled the full gamut of lemon myrtle, and it's been really insightful to look at how it has been used, how it is being used, and how we can now use it as well. Is there anything else about lemon myrtle that you feel we've missed that we better before we wrap up today?
You know what? I really suggest that everybody does have lemon myrtle in their house. There's my first suggestion, because over the period of time that we're going to get together, you're going to see many times I'm going to mention lemon myrtle, like cleaning your refrigerator out, doing the bathrooms. We're going to mention those different types of really, I call them, those bug busting oils. That's an oil. What that is, it's a bug buster, and it helps with that aromas, and I'll tell you another little thing just quickly now, and I know this is a stupid thing to talk about, but we've had a few tomcats running around lately because I don't know why, but they've been running around here. And unfortunately, tomcats have a tendency to spray, as you know, and that urine smell is extremely strong. So using the lemon myrtle, actually, because of that citral, it just knocks out that really heavy aroma. That it really does. It neutralizes it out. So think about that if you've got something, even down to the thought if there's a lot of mold somewhere and you're cleaning it, just that lemon myrtle has an amazing power behind it.
Well, from fungal infections to tomcat urine, lemon myrtle seems to do it all. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Of course, people can find out more about you and everything that we offer in the links below. But we'll be back in a few weeks to talk about our next oil. We're not going to tell you what it is yet. We're going to make you hang on and wait and find out. But thank you very much for taking the time. Let us know what you'd like to know about as well. And if you've got any questions, share them as well. But until then, take care and we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye. Merry Christmas to all.